Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 484, recorded live on Saturday, August 19th. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have returning to the show, Voodu. Welcome back.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
And we also have Asheras.
Hey, thanks for having me again.
Yeah, thanks for being here. This week's screenshot, Angel Maldita gets some scary visitors for the 328th screenshot of the week. Very nice close-up, considering that they're probably trying to kill you. You can tell that they're not dead yet because it's not all hazy, right? So, very well shot though. That's a indeed a scary picture. We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can catch us through YouTube, the DDO forums, Twitch, iTunes, or from our website at DDOCast.com. DDOCast is hosted by Cyber Ears, the Awesome Podcast Hosting Network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will probably be next Saturday, August 26th. We're going to kick off a new series with that. We're going to be looking at leveling. So we're going to take more or less 3 levels at a time. And kind of go through the quests that are available at that level range and kind of say, well, quests you should avoid, quests you should definitely run, some favorites, that kind of a thing. So that'll be a recurring series for a little while. But you can subscribe by following us on social media pages or our website, DDOCast.com, with our calendar. Before we get any further, I do have a production note. I bought a new computer. It's awesome. I love it. There is an awkward thing, though, with setting all that stuff up, and I've mentioned it a few times on the show, but the audio is kind of a weird thing for me during a live show. I actually have 2 different sets of earphones because I can't hear myself through my computer. So hopefully I did enough prep work and the balance is about right. That's what I'm going for. So... but there might be some other technical issues and some stuff going on. I'm still kind of figuring out some of the programs I use got updated and work differently now. So there might be a few things that are a little different, few things that are a little bit off, for which I apologize. But hopefully the chat room will let me know if anything looks really stupid or if I sound like 50% louder than everybody else, and I can adjust that on the fly. That said, what are we going to do this week? We've got a fun little thing we're going to do. We're going to do our Update 36 review. Which we usually try to review every update. We've got some good guys here with me to do that. So we'll just jump right in. And I think we'll kind of piecemeal it, and then we'll go to the big picture at the end. So let's start with the thing that everyone always wants with a new update, content. So what did you guys think about the quests?
I want to say right at the outset that the fact that we have 5 new quests is amazing. And I went back to see when is the last time we saw that. 5 new standalone quests.
I don't think I want you to tell me.
Update 16 High Road was the last time we saw 5 new. Now, that's aside from like the second expansion. And
Sure.
It's aside from Update 29, which had 5 quests, but 3 of them were just epified raids. So that's not new. That's not totally new. You know what I mean? So, freaking amazing.
I agree. I really liked these quests too. They weren't just 5 new quests. They were 5 quests that I felt were all different in certain ways. So it wasn't the same thing over and over again. There was some nice mob variety in the different quests. There were some nice different objectives. The quest length was, I think, different from the recent quests we've had, which is nice. I like it when there's different lengths of quests within a level range, and certainly newcomers in Black and Blue, the last 2 quests were longer. I felt Black and Blue after getting done with them most of the time. So it was nice to have quests where we got done a little quicker, but not super fast. These aren't really short quests either. Maybe 1 or 2 of them are, but I really enjoyed them from that perspective.
It was really cool to revisit the Underdark too.
Yeah.
And I don't like the way that they did the entrance, and I totally understand that like they couldn't do it in what we already had of the Underdark. And for those of you, listening, you don't understand their reasoning. It was because that was a pay area, and they wanted this stuff to be available to people who didn't have that expansion. So I totally get that, But just the way, you just talk to a little dwarf on the side at Evening Star, and he takes you to the mines. I don't know. I'm not really big into immersion, but I would have liked to seen something a little bit different. And something I said in one of my first look videos is that I think that town that's in the final one, Desire in the Dark, is so gorgeous. There's like a little fantasy town, and I wish that had been the new public area, and then we could go to the mines from there. I think that would have been really neat.
Yeah, I get the fact that the Underdark is a part of the expansion, and if you don't have the expansion, you can't get there. But I would have really enjoyed this being something where all these quest entrances were in the Underdark somewhere, and even getting access to the town was also someplace you had to travel to at least once, or maybe once you've completed the chain, then you can, basically at that point, then you've opened up the ability for the caravan to come direct from Evening Star, and you can travel there in the future. But yeah, I think that's an opportunity missed from an immersion standpoint too, and I miss that. I think that they've, like they didn't put the Shroud quests, the flaggers out in the Vale. They're right there in Meridia, and that's been a tendency these days to make quests more accessible, I think, and at the expense of immersion. It's not my favorite choice, but I understand what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Yeah, I kind of was wondering at a few points where would it have just been better if they'd have just made King's Forest and Underdark, the Explorer areas, free? Like, you can't do those quests, but if they just made those free, so you could actually you could go into them even as a free player, or if you
love it.
Or,
I think that'd be great. Yeah.
I don't know how their gating system works, if that's really feasible. I assume it is, but I understand why they don't necessarily want to do that. But yeah, in terms of length, I think you were in the group, Ash, where we ran it on Reaper. I think we were in like three or four.
That sounds about right.
And we ran the whole thing in about 2 hours.
Yeah, that's about right.
And we reran one of the quests because the boss fell into the wall.
Yeah, the one with the undead and yeah.
The one with the golems bursting through the wall and stuff like that, yeah. So yeah, I liked the thing that I kind of noticed was I liked some of the little moments and how they did something. Like, I liked the golem, like activating the golems to go and break through the walls. That was kind of a nice way of gating the different areas or different acts, if you will, of the quest. So I kind of liked that. It makes more sense too than the go find a key that's on this side of the door to unlock the dungeon, right?
Yeah.
One of the most broken things in all of video games in terms of like storylines, right? The plot holes. So I really kind of like some of those. I'm noticing that I have kind of noticed this trend where the most interesting fight that I seem to find in an update or a quest or whatever always seems to be like this side thing, like the fight with the magma elemental where the tiles are disappearing and reappearing.
That was awesome.
It's a cool fight and mechanic, and I like fights and mechanics like that. But they always seem to put those on the side these days, as opposed to.
And it's small.
Yeah, I mean, you remember back in when Devils of Shavrath, New Invasion, right? Like, that's a really mechanical fight. Granted, it's probably one of the hardest fights in the game, if you're doing it at level. But boss fights these days seem to, from a mechanic standpoint, not be that interesting.
I agree. If they were to take that magma thing and make it be something that's bigger, where you're facing a more challenging mob or even the end boss, and you have to be on those, or traversing them more regularly for an extended period of time, that creates an interesting element, and I would really have enjoyed that. I liked it. I hope it's just something they kind of splashed out there that they're going to reuse in the future, because it harkens back a little bit to creating the ice platforms in Abbott and that sort of thing, and having to hop around, and I liked that. I like those mechanics, and I'd like to see that be used more often. Not like they did the puzzles in the last set where it was everywhere, but keep it in your or the mirrors back in Deathworm, but it's something you can use in your bag of tricks, and variety is great.
That in Records of the Past, which is the third one of the chain, which has mirror puzzle in it, which I thought was kind of neat. That's an example of a boss fight here that I really wanted there to be a little bit more to it. When we got to that final room, and that's the guy, the summoner in the summoning circle, I thought, oh, this looks really cool. What's it going to be? And it's just like he has one summoned mob, and then you beat him down. It would have been neat if I don't know, he summoned mobs while you were beating him down, or if you didn't beat him down fast enough, he would keep summoning more mobs or something like that.
Yeah, it's just that I feel like a lot of times these days the boss fights are the least interesting fights, and I can see from a standpoint of they were trying something with that optional fight, and they didn't want it to be integral to completing the quest in case it didn't work. But I look at the last couple updates. I had this critique with slavers too, right? Like the most interesting parts of slave lords and those dungeons and going through them were little bit moments, like the bee room and the cheese room.
Mm-hmm.
Were the most flavorful, interesting part of those dungeons, but you were right through them. I mean, you don't even see the cheese room unless you look through a different door, right? Which I never see anyone going into. So, and I would like to see them utilize more of those interesting mechanics, those interesting places, so that they're not just bit moments, and make the boss fights a little bit more interesting and more mechanical. I know we have raid boss fights that always tend to be very mechanical and stuff like that, but a little bit more variety than here's insert mob boss and beat him down.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that any fight where you've got multiple stages to it, they kind of got into that in the one fight where the boss teleports away when you at various percentages of HP. That's not a particularly compelling mechanic, but it did create some difference in the fight than just a standard beatdown, which was nice. I think they can do more of that. I like that there's some good optionals here. We mentioned that the one with the lava. I like that the puzzle that you mentioned earlier in Records of the Past also can open up a couple of extra optionals as well, or the light beams can open up extra optionals, and that's nice there as well. I also enjoy that. I can't remember which one it is, but there's one as well where there's a secret door that allows you to bypass one of the locked doors, and you have alternate ways of accomplishing things, some through brute force, some through stealth, things like that. Anytime they're giving you multiple paths to complete something and utilizing different skill sets or different character build sets, I love that in quests, and
yeah.
I more of that is great.
I thought they did a pretty clever job of reusing things too. I don't remember which one it was, but there was one spot, you'll probably remember it, where there's a ramp that goes up to a door. And I'm like, oh, look, they reused this entire hallway from Search and Rescue. And then the part behind it, too.
I wanted to mention that, too, because it's actually the whole quest, Third Time's a Charm, just feels like that optional from Search and Rescue put in a blender. I mean, that is such a rehash, which... Okay, given that we have 5 new quests, I'm okay with that one of them is rehashing. Maybe they could have stuffed that one in the middle and 7 has being the first one, because I saw that, it put a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. But if you haven't run them yet and you do that one first and it feels real rehashy, don't worry, the rest of them don't feel rehashy. But
no,
yeah, that one was just like totally that same optional just redone.
And that one spot was, because it's so big and you go right into it, it's like, wait, I've been here before. I'm confused. Like you had that little part in the back of your brain that's like, am I in the right spot? I'm confused. Because it's so big and so easy to recognize that it was that. But the rest of it, I think they hid the reuse very well, especially in the last one where you're kind of bouncing around all the memoirs. That there's different areas that it's definitely reused art assets, but.
But that's the one with the town, and that town looks relatively fresh. It doesn't look very similar to the one that's in Slavers, for example, when we pop up in that little town temporarily. I really liked this one. I liked the castle. I liked the Mind Flayer optional solution to getting into the castle. There was some unique flavor to some of that. again, some dialogue-based stuff versus just pure beat it all down. The end boss fight in that one is a little bit interesting and unique. You've got some spawns, you've got some disco balls. That's that's kind of fun to some degree. I don't know. Even at the end of Graveyard Shift, the one where the boss got stuck in the wall, what's interesting about that end fight is that you're in a very confined space. And even when you use space that way, it can change a lot of your tactical needs, especially in an environment where a lot of people are playing ranged or caster builds and they're used to being able to attack safely from distance. When you shrink that space up, that becomes much harder to do.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Graveyard Shift and things that you would like to see expanded on. And that one has like the golem standing on the super deep glowing pit, and we all really wanted that to be something like maybe that would be an optional that we could open up and jump down that pit, but it was nothing. It was such a tease.
Yeah,
teases are okay occasionally, but everything can't be unique and interesting, right?
That's true.
I know this because I ran into this problem with my pen and paper group. This is a bit of a rabbit trail, but my pen and paper group, and I was describing this room, like a library of scrolls are everywhere. Like, people have a bookshelf, and there's so many books that are like crammed and stacked in using every little inch of space, like with scrolls. I'm describing this room, and there's this tapestry on the wall of a wizard fighting zombies. There's a chair, and there's a rug in the middle of the room. And the group immediately goes, "Don't step on the rug."
Sometimes your groups just hone in on something that you didn't expect them to hone in on.
Well,
They are
and it's like I'm
fixated
describing
on it.
this
You're
entire
like,
room, and
that's
and
not the thing.
the byline is I mean, I described the rug a little bit more, like in a pretty nice looking old rug, and they're like, "Don't step on the rug." Now, when they stepped on the rug, it made zombies come out of the tapestry and attack them. So they were right, but if everything is something,
they know you.
It was pretty funny. In any case, the only thing I want to talk about the new quest, and we were talking about this a couple times already, but what do you guys think of the DM work and the voice work?
I thought it was fine. It really didn't appear. Wasn't remarkable to me one way or the other.
I'm still on the fence about the accents of the dwarves. Like
they're Scottish.
They're really terrible Scottish accent.
None of it's even memorable to me.
Sure.
And I know I turned it on, so I guess that says something because I can't even really remember any of it. The dwarves just don't shut up in the public area though, so that's really irritating. They just keep going and going. I did kind of like the boss dialogue.
Sure.
In the final quest. Yeah,
the end boss is nice. I hope we do see more of that boss and a continuing storyline.
Said as much.
Yeah. One of the requests I'd have is that we have more content that is linked in some way. I like that, doing a lot of heroic and racial TRing lately. You really see that there are some storylines earlier in the game that start very low level and continue in various ways all the way up through to cap 20. But then when you look at the content that comes in Epic and now into Legendary, it's a lot of individualized storylines that aren't necessarily continuing from pack to pack, or that are being revisited. And I'd love to see a storyline that's more continuous.
There's even, the older quests, they may not be a continuous storyline, but they interact a lot. There's the Stormweaver story arc, which many people don't realize, starts in Waterworks and goes all the way up to through Fall of Truth, essentially. I think it basically ends there because the Stormweaver dies again. And then, or I guess truly dies, right? But there's a lot of content there. The Necropolis is a pretty long-ranging arc, which actually goes into the Shroud. Like the Shroud happens because of Accursed Dissension. And then I think Legendary Shroud happens because of Mark of Death, even so. But yeah, some more interplay with them would be kind of nice, even if they're not necessarily the same story arc. But having that interplay kind of gives it more of that world building. Although I don't know how many people really read the storylines. So,
I
that includes me.
that immersion angle I think is more interesting than people give credit for sometimes.
It is, yeah. Uh, and it's like you wonder how many people know Inquisitor Nomen from Lords of Dust is actually has a role to play earlier in the quest lines. Like he's not just a one-off character. So, but it's there for the people like it. Let's move away from the quests and let's talk about some of the other stuff. Let's start with Artificers. So the Artificers got a rework. We still don't have a third tree for them, but Battle Engineer got reworked. A lot of Rune Arm stuff got tweaked and added to the base class. Have either of you guys kind of messed around with Artificers since the changes?
I ran
Artificer, so I can't really add anything here.
Yeah, I ran, and I mentioned I've been doing some racial TRing and that sort of thing. So I've run an Artificer a couple times now, 1 through 20, and I'm enjoying it. I use the Battle Engineer tree more heavily than I normally have, and I find that a lot of the changes they've made there have really boosted the power level of it. Artificers, I think, I've always kind of played well though, 1 to 20. I haven't played them in epics, and I hear that's kind of where they had traditionally tapered off. So I don't know if that's been resolved. But I mean, Artificer's a fun class to play. It has a lot of unique elements to it. So.
I've actually been enjoying playing an Artificer on my current reincarnation life, more so than Warlock. It just feels more, like, unless I'm fighting undead. I've noticed a noticeable problem with getting past damage reduction. That's blunt or slashing is pretty painful. Especially on Reaper, because then you're stacking a reduction on top of reduction, and it's ugly. And I'm just sitting there looking like I am participating and helping when really I'm doing nothing, and it's all zeros. But otherwise, I've been enjoying it more than Warlock even. But I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm not really sure how much of that is different from. They're certainly a little more powerful, which is nice. I would say that in Epic, my Artificer, I haven't played him a lot, but he did seem a little bit more potent. A little extra damage. Still not. I think he was kind of still behind like my Ranger and which is a comparable build type archetype. So, although that may have been, in fairness, that may be because my Ranger is in a Prime Destiny, and my Artificer was running in Fate Singer because I still need XP and needed Karma XP in that sphere. So, that probably has a little bit to do with it. But yeah, it seemed to be better.
I think that it was interesting that they added the war hammers and the light hammers and everything to the tree for melee damage. Although I really feel like the Artificer is still much better as a ranged crossbow rune arm build, and I'm not sure what they can do to actually make that melee side viable.
A third tree would help.
A third tree would probably help. So we'll have to see what we get there, but. That's the one thing I felt like the buffs really did well for the ranged and the rune arm stuff. It made the rune arms really useful, but I think for the melee side of it, they're still lacking.
One thing I really liked what they did was they took a lot of the stuff out of Battle Engineer that was about how your rune arm operates and making it charge fast, or a lot of stuff that they took out of that. They just granted to the base class, which I think is so much better because. When you think about Artificers, Rune Arm is such an integral part of their class, essentially, that taking a lot of that stuff out and just making it part of the base class, I think was a really good move. Really happy about that.
I do want to add something peripheral here, is that if you liked Artificer but you gave up on them because you didn't like how they performed in Epics, if you want to do some 1 to 20 racial lives, revisit Artificer. If you get yourself a Vorpal repeater and you can just machine gun down mobs in Reaper mode.
It's fun. Like
crazy. It's awesome.
One of the complaints I had with Warlock,
very fun,
and maybe it's just because of gear or how poorly I was building them or something, but it seemed like every shot was doing like 1 to 3 damage. Although I think it was in like chain or whatever, but it didn't seem to be doing as much damage, and the Artificer seems to be applying more damage or at least I feel like it is. And it may not be. It may be. Warlocks may do more damage, but the feeling part, when you're, especially for me, doing past lives, which I'm not really a big fan of doing a whole bunch of past lives, so it feeling like I'm doing more is really important to me. It feels more fun.
Artificers definitely get more power early on. It takes a while for warlocks to really get moving from a damage standpoint, especially with the new refined damage dice and things like that. So yeah, the first 4 levels, there's no doubt that an artificer with a nice low-level Vorpal repeater is a lot more fun to play in the first 5 to 6 levels.
With that, we'll use it as a transition. Let's talk about the warlock nerfs. Having had a chance to play with them and see what they're like, what do you guys think about those?
Voodu's been at cap since the changes, so in terms of playing at the end game, I see the only difference I feel is, I might have to throw another round of bursts on the boss. Voodu's in a Light and Spirit Burster, so which is another 5 seconds in an encounter. And then in terms of a quest, it might take me a couple extra minutes to complete the quest, because the damage that they do has been somewhat attenuated. It's no big deal at endgame for me, but I have not played it leveling.
Sure.
Yeah, when this release came out, I had a warlock that I was leveling. I think I was around level 12 or 13 at the time, and I didn't even notice. I was playing for about 90 minutes, and I said, "Oh, that's right. They changed our damage." It just to me, by that point, you've got enough dice. It really doesn't matter. Now I run a lot in Soul Eater and Tainted Scholar when I'm leveling, because the SLAs and such are much better there. So I don't use the burst and the blast too much. So I haven't really played much with that difference during the heroic leveling, but the base blast damage stuff, I haven't really noticed much of a difference. I do notice that early on, you missed that first dice bump up. I think happened maybe at 3rd level, and now it happens at 4th level or something. I may be wrong there. Yeah, but it pushes it back basically level, and you notice that because that's a point where you really need every point of damage, especially if you're running Reaper and you're getting some negative. And then I have a level 30 Warlock that I run, and again, I can't tell the difference. But then again, by level 30, unless you're using the Spirit Blast or like that, your base Eldritch Blast should be the same, because if you're taking the epic feats, yeah, you get the points back. So,
which I know we have a guildie that doesn't generally take the feats, I think, or at least not both of them, because he's doing more of a DC caster, so he lost some damage there that he's not happy about. Although I haven't heard him complain in game. That was a conversation. He was on the show, I think, actually at the time. That's a conversation we had outside from a more of an academic perspective of, I don't like these changes. I'm losing damage. You never like to lose damage. As far as the field thing, I was kind of in the same boat. I had a guy that was leveling up, and he was... I don't think I build Warlocks particularly well. But he was a burster. And I would say that I don't think... It didn't really impact my sense of enjoyment of leveling a Warlock through the levels, through Heroic. I kind of wasn't really enjoying it before that, and I wasn't really enjoying it after that. So I can at least speak to that part. I don't know how the damage probably affected me, but I didn't really notice it. I will say this life, having managed to barely keep up with a couple of people that reincarnate a lot faster and a lot better than I do, for basically from level 1 to 11, it sure didn't seem to slow them down any, so...
I know you're talking about. I run with them as well, and no, it didn't. It hasn't slowed down the two groups that I'll tend to hang out with quite a bit.
Yeah, no.
Which typically have 3 or 4 warlocks in them.
And that may be because you're not using Enlightened Spirit as much, but they certainly didn't seem to lose that much potency. But
not at all.
Experience may vary too. It certainly, I would say it probably impacted me more than I realized. just from the standpoint that I do tend to build a warlock with more Enlightened Spirit than Tainted Scholar and Soul Eater, but it's kind of a... I don't think I do Soul Eater very well, is really kind of the takeaway from that more than anything else. There was a lot of other stuff. So those were kind of the three big things with this update. There was a lot of other stuff that I want to at least kind of touch on. The first one, we'll hit some of the big ones, and I'll, maybe if you guys want to pull anything else out from the release notes, we can talk about that. The skill reorder. So when you look at your character sheet, at least, I can't remember if it's actually the whole character sheet, like when you're just looking at it, because I don't tend to look at my character sheet skills that much. But definitely when you're leveling, what they did is they reordered the skills. So it used to be they're just all alphabetical. Now the first ones on the list are class skills that you have points in. And then after that comes cross-class skills that you have points in. And then it's class skills you don't have points in and cross-class skills you don't have points in. I was actually surprised at how much I really like this change.
It's a simple but awesome quality of life change.
Right?
It's amazing how long I've thought about this when I'm leveling, especially if I'm going through an LR20 or something like that, or or you're doing the thing where you epic reincarnate and you've got to get back to 20. It's annoying, it's frustrating, and it's been that way forever. But as soon as they changed it, it's amazing. And yeah, it's a small thing, but it's great.
I remember reading the release note when it was on Lemania the first time. I was like, oh, okay, that sure. And then I actually experienced it. I was like, oh wow, I like this a lot more than I thought I would. Before I didn't really care. I was like, oh okay, whatever. But I didn't realize how, because I've just been used to it. It's always been that way for 10, 11 years, right? But this is way better.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
No.
Long time coming.
And then there's also the guild buff. You can hide the guild buffs, which I think is pretty darn spiffy.
Yeah, that's awesome too. It's another simple but awesome one.
Yeah, that's one that ever since they implemented the guild buffs, that's been a problem, that the bar only goes over so far, especially if you've got like a 1900, by whatever resolution. And then they clog up the whole thing. So you really can't see your other buffs. I know that I would often be sitting there and all of a sudden it would flash up on my screen that my 50% pod expired and now I'm running a 20% or whatever, and I'm like, oh crap. So it's nice to be able to see that now, and or maybe my Slayer boost ran out in the middle of a Slayer area, and so some of those things, it's nice to be able to see those now. I like it a lot.
Well, that was really the only thing that was really impacting me, because usually you can't. They go in your buff bar kind of in the order that they're received. So if you go into a quest and start getting a bunch of buffs, you can see all those. But it was really the XP potion and boost potions, right, that would get lost in translation. That would be hidden. Anything that was there when you hit the button or log in would kind of reshuffle and make it harder to find. So it's definitely a lot nicer. Although I have noticed there's a few things that make that the consolidated timer go away, like jump, which is kind of awkward.
I haven't noticed that. Interesting.
Yeah, if you cast jump on yourself, or maybe it's just the class I've been in, but if you get jump cast on you, or at least cast on yourself, that the jump overrides that icon goes away. It's kind of awkward.
The devs have acknowledged that, and so they're aware and are going to fix it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's really a small. Even without that buff there, that timer there, I usually. I mean, those things last. Now, I can understand if you don't have that much time, but ours lasts like 5 hours. So it's pretty rare that I don't run past the button and just kind of absent-mindedly push the button for 5 hours of playtime. So
it's worth mentioning to viewers that may not be aware that you can hide your ship buffs now. Mm-hmm. Totally gone, or you can also choose to condense them and just have them as a single icon, so at least that way you can see how much time is left. And so what Patrick is referring to,
hiding consolidated them. I thought that icon was there. It was either one icon or all the icons.
Oh, I thought it was Okay, I thought we had 3 different options. I thought we had see them
I don't
all,
think so.
see none, or consolidate.
There was this weird thing because the icon, the consolidated icon, came in the patch afterwards. So if until you hit the button the second time, hit the button after that icon was implemented, you didn't get that little icon. But I think it's one or the other. It's still better if you don't want to see.
Oh, heck yeah.
But you can change that in the UI settings. Which, if I had one complaint about this, is maybe another quality of life thing you could do is go into the UI panel and maybe organize that a little better, or give it like subheadings so you don't have to like hunt through everything.
It is pretty busy.
It's kind of hidden. Those are the things that I had. Was there anything else you guys wanted to chime in on or talk about?
So glad that they finally added a description to Legendary Green Steel. I realize that's more of a fix than a quality of life thing, but
that is nice.
Yeah, better late than never.
Yeah, speaking of loot, I really enjoyed some of the loot options that they had in these quests and in this content. There's some nice stuff in here to get. I didn't necessarily feel like the stuff in Black and Blue and Newcomers was quite as attractive. So I thought they did a good job with the loot and hitting some interesting items in there.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about the loot, which we probably should have. So let's talk about the loot a little more in general. Now that you kind of mentioned it. Voodu, what about you for loot? What did you think about it?
You know, I looked at it all, but there wasn't anything I wanted for my tunes, so I can't even really speak to anything that sticks out, you know. I play very, niche castery kind of tunes, so if it doesn't appeal to my couple builds that I play, then I'm like, whatever. I'm going to pull it up here, though.
Yeah, I mean, there was some stuff in there that was kind of useful. I think the one item that I really wanted to get was the Wisdom Ring, I think.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find Chieftain. There we go.
That's a nice ring.
Yeah, no.
I wish I could fit that one in.
I fit that one in because that's a little extra wisdom on that guy. Now, granted, he's a DC. My cleric is a DC caster, but he doesn't have like Slave Lord's gear, so it's easier to fit gear in when you're not pulling these like five set item sets. But it was a nice little bump in what he's got going for him.
Yeah.
Which I like.
Now, there's a cape too, or the legendary slate scale capelet, which has 18 strength, quality strength 4, vitality 60, quality fort 45, and that's a really great cloak for a melee. I know melees aren't necessarily a lot of fun to play these days, but when you look at what normally comes on a cloak slot for a melee, it's a dead slot in a lot of ways. So I like that they're looking at this named loot and they're saying, let's put some stats on an off slot so that this now fits in real well, and it's not competing with your other gear per se. So that's a really nice item. Going with stuff that does fit the current meta, they threw in a nice Dwarven Axe, which we haven't seen a lot of those, and it's got improved Vorpal on it, which is nice because, Vorpal is a great thing in Reaper these days for chopping down some mobs. There's a couple of crossbows that have that as well, which I really liked. And speaking of crossbows, there's some really good roguey, sneaky kind of loot. You got some nice stuff with some, there's an insightful dex item, a belt that, again, interesting slot. You get insightful dex 8, you get some quality distant diversion, which is hard to find, double shot 11, speed 30 on a belt. Then there's another one that has the diversion, the double strike, the quality diversion and deadly. So that's a nice, assassin or sneaky melee type of item. So
I think a lot of
stuff.
The thing I took away from this, and this happens a lot these days. So the devs will talk about it in terms of horizontal creep and vertical creep. Actually, I don't know if they use creep, but there's horizontal. I think it's horizontal and vertical progression. I think is the term that they use, and they've mentioned this when they've been on the show over Ask the Devs. But basically, there's two ways that they try to expand players' power. One is horizontal, which is you're not really increasing the power. You don't increase the power, but you give more options. Vertical would be things are more powerful. And this stuff, there's a little bit of vertical progression here, but it's mostly horizontal. So it's widening a lot of options. There's a lot of nice items, and I tagged a bunch of these items as things. Yeah, I would like to get them, but none of them, other than the chieftain ring, which has more to do with what my cleric currently has. There wasn't really anything that jumped out as, oh, that's really going to impact and better my character's gear set. Having said that, but there's a lot of items I think I like out of this, just not deal break or game changers in that sense, because there's not a lot of vertical progression here. It's mostly horizontal.
For those that haven't looked at the loot set from update 36 yet, they're really starting to round out the plus 18 stat items. So we saw plus 18 stat items for the first time in update 35. We have even more with this loot set.
Yeah.
Well, and an example of what you're saying is that there's a cloak that comes out of Graveyard Shift, which has plus 18 intelligence, quality intelligence 4, and then it also has combat mastery 14 and reflex save. So you're going to see the intelligence, and you're going to say a lot of wizards would like that, but obviously the other items on there are ones that play more towards a melee or ranged character that's using intelligence to hit and damage. But then there's also a dagger that comes out of one of the quests. I think it's the first one, Third Time's a Charm, which has intelligence 18 again, but then this time it has on it, I think it's illusion, some DCs and some things like that. It's a caster-based dagger. So you're really not you're not increasing the stats, but you have two different items that are horizontally equivalent just for different builds. And because a lot of times what you'll do is you'll end up taking an item because there's two things on it, maybe a stat that works for your build, even though it's really technically a caster cloak and you're ranged or whatever. And so now they're filling in those holes with items that actually really fit specific builds. And that's nice to see.
Yeah, and I like how a lot of this stuff is. We've had loot in the past where you get some items and it's like, okay, well, there's two things that these kind of builds would like, and there's two things that these other completely different builds would like, and they don't really make a lot of sense together. But these ones all make sense together, right? Like the stuff that's on them, even the ones that some people might kind of turn like the cloak you were talking about, the Dwarven Commander cloak, where you got intelligence and then combat mastery, which doesn't seem like a combination you would see a lot. You think intelligence and you see, oh, wizards. But with Harper Agent, you can do a lot of fun stuff with intelligence to hit and damage and I think it's know the angles, right? Gives you tactics based on your intelligence. So there's a lot of stuff that kind of comes into play there. But also, that's actually a really nice item for artificers now, because artificers battle engineer tree got a couple things that work off of Sunder DCs, including a long-range trip.
Yes.
So that's a really nice item from that perspective. So you think about some stuff a little bit more. Like the same thing with the. I saw some people. There's a rune arm that has combat mastery on it. And a bunch of people are like, "Why would you have a rune arm with combat mastery? No one takes these. No one does tripping and stuff." Like, well, there's new stuff in their tree that actually uses combat skills. So.
That's a really nice rune arm because it has magnetism, lightning lore, and two types of combat mastery on it. So it's really nice for the new artificer stuff. Two things I'd like to call out that I don't like though. One, there's a quarterstaff that has improved paralyzing on it at level 28. That's a DC of 25. They've got to fix the paralyzing DC because it's a joke. I mean that's not working on anything at level 28. So,
well, it does have the it does reduce their wisdom. On each hit. So there's a little thing there, but sure.
Yeah, but and then the second thing is that dagger I mentioned. It is illusion DC focuses, and that's probably the third or fourth item we've had since Gnomes came out where they're bumping illusion DCs, and there's still maybe 2 spells in the game that use an illusion DC. I would really, and I can't recall us getting a really good necro item recently, or a really good conjuration item. There's been some evocation stuff, maybe an enchantment item here or there, but they're really focused on this illusion DC, and it's almost annoying because there's nothing you can use it for.
Sure. There's a lot of good stuff here.
So make more
I hope they use more. I really like the quarterstaff, though. I think it's kind of fun that it has the shield bonus on it. I would like to see some more.
Yeah.
Of that. That's kind of a fun thing to do. More defensive-minded quarterstaffs.
And that's a nice shield bonus, too, plus 17.
I mean, it's level 28, but yeah, you get a free shield while you're using that, so that's pretty sweet. But I'd like to see some more of that option for some of those, especially with a quarterstaff, right? Like, a quarterstaff seems like a weapon that you could very easily make a kind of more of a defensive-minded or more of an offensive-minded. It makes sense from perspective. Making giving a great axe a giant shield bonus doesn't really make a lot of sense. But I do kind of like and we've seen the shield bonus in a few other places, but it's pretty rare. A rune arm would be a cool place to see one of those, a couple of those, right? All right, is there anything else you guys want to talk about for Update 36?
Well, I want to say one thing about one of the quests, and I just loved Strike Back. Just sneaking into a castle is such a wonderfully cliche kind of, Dungeons and Dragons kind of thing to do, and I just loved that element of that quest. If you haven't done that one yet, you can either go straight in through the gate, or you can sneak in through the sewers. Absolutely love it.
And there's a lot of NPCs to talk to and a lot of side things you can do in there. I enjoyed that one as well.
All right, so we're going to blow it out. Big picture, letter grade, and kind of summation thoughts. I think I'm in about the A- range. There's a lot of great stuff in here to like. I detach a little bit. Well, mostly, I kind of detach where I personally am at with the game. So the fact that there's not a lot of loot here that I'm really screaming for, I can disassociate that from the loot is pretty darn good and a lot of fun items in there. And I liked the quests. I liked the time it takes to run them. I don't really mind, even though other than that one section I already talked about, it doesn't really feel like a lot of reused art assets in the same way that we have some other ones. So, yeah, I was pretty happy with it. Good story.
I would give it a B+. I really liked it. This is a good update. I felt like the last two updates, I wasn't a huge fan of Newcomers in Black and Blue or Tower of Frost. I felt like all those had problems with them as quests. And so I really liked the direction of this. I thought it was a step in the right direction. I liked the loot. I thought it was a good direction for them to go in. I liked some of the system changes they made, although they were relatively minor. This was probably my favorite update that they've had since Slave Lords.
I think I'm gonna go right. I'm waffling between B and B+. Definitely in the context that B is above average. This is definitely an above average update, hands down. So definitely B+ is at the top of my range. Lots of loot. Even though like you said, bracketing out the fact that I'm not personally using it. There is a lot of good stuff there. 5 new quests, totally awesome. 4 of them are very original, beautifully done. Yeah, I definitely feel good about giving it a B+ grade.
Sure.
I think if they had modified the Reaper system with Epic and at cap XP and fixed the TR item loss bug, I would have gone A on this.
They did fix a lot of other bugs, though.
They did. Yes, this is the one that had Linabelle's awesome list of changes. Lots of tooltips got fixed. Lots of good quality of life stuff in here. No doubt about it.
Yeah. Linabelle posted at midnight last night. What is she doing? Friday night, midnight. She's posted on her Linabelle Please Fix post.
She's probably playing DDO or playing something.
You know what? One of the things I will say is that if you've got folks working on a product who are fans of the product, which Linabelle clearly is, then you can see that passion come through in the work and in the quality and in the focus. And she may be an intern and may not have all the technical skills yet, and might be still learning the programming aspect of it. But it's great when you get folks who are really passionate about something. I know I work in a software development environment, and when I've got my developers who are passionate about something and are really into it, the results show. So she's definitely been a help.
She's definitely into it, and her passion, and it definitely comes through with as much as she posts. And I think it says in her signature, enthusiasm enthusiast.
And let's be clear too, some of her posts are not very working posts that are having fun with the community and chatting with the community too. So,
and that's great. Engaging the community is awesome.
All right. With that, I think we can get into game news, which means I will tell you about all the stuff that's the bonus days and the store news, because that's pretty much it for game news this week. Even though I missed a week, there just wasn't a lot of game news, which I think has the reason for that is clearly because they are all hands. It's all about was all about Mordor the last couple of weeks, because they launched that 2-3 weeks ago, something like that. So that's why there hasn't really been a lot going on. So they're kind of gearing up and going into Ravenloft. The work has been going on Ravenloft. They just haven't really given us anything to look at really recently. But bonus days this week through tomorrow, August 20th, double Mysterious Remnants. There's also the Remnant Rewards vendors are around. I think they're through next Thursday. Which, let me tell you, those Remnant boost potions you get from the Traveler's Trunk are great to use during double Remnants.
Absolutely.
Weekends. So that's been pretty slick. I probably need to spend some Remnants soon, because I've been raking those in. It helps that the group that I've been riding their coattails has been running on like Reaper 3-4, so there's a lot of extra champions too. Let's see, the store sales for the week. Store more loot, 20% off of character banks, shared banks, deposit box, plat storage, inventory space, and bags.
Still waiting for shared banks 17 and up to go on sale. It has never gone on sale. Come on.
May not. I gave in. I just bought it. It's like, the space is so nice.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
One thing I'd like to throw out there with the Remnants, I'm a huge fan of the Eternal Pot of Freedom of Movement. It lasts for 10 minutes with a 10-minute timer, so you can have it running nonstop. And unlike Death Ward or Haste or Displacement, there's not a lot of easy sources for this, short of having to swap out an important gear spot. So I'm a big fan of that. It's only at, what is it, 10,000, I think? It's well worth your investment.
If you got it, definitely, yeah.
That's my commercial.
I don't know if I would say
approve this message.
I don't know that Displacement has a lot of easy sources. But I can only really think of two places you can get Displacement other than scrolls. They don't last that long.
They don't. And that's the problem with the potion. The potion lasts what?
A minute.
A minute with a 5-minute with a 5-minute cooldown.
No, I agree. Freedom of Movement's clearly the best one there. I was actually thinking the other day that we need a jump Eternal Potion. That could be nice.
That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
I agree.
Jump plus 30 potion. Yeah, great. Although I've got, this says more about how bad I am about using consumables, but I still have like 30 of the cookie or the cake jelly things that give jump from Festival.
But see, the thing is, nobody will use an Eternal Potion of Jump because it'll be in cooldown conflict with all the rest of them. So they're going to have to address that part.
Which is one of the unfortunate things about... it'd be nice if they... I don't necessarily mind if they share the same cooldown timer, but if the cooldown timer was not quite so extensively long, it'd be kind of nice. But, in any case, the freebie for the week, you can get 5 long-lasting potion of 10 magical resistances potions. Use the coupon code PADDING, PADDING. And with that means we get to community news. There was a Chronicle 2 weeks ago, not this week. Cordovan is at Gen Con, so that's why there wasn't one this week. But we can do the one from last week, which was the 246th Chronicle. Bachelor streams regularly on Twitch and DDO stream every Friday night, so you can give him a follow there. If you are at Gen Con, they had the Friday night gathering for us last night, so hopefully some people made it there. I hear it's always a lot of fun. The guild for the week, Monster Ops Neutralization, is a level 62 guild on Argonescent, started by a band of friends. This guild has a Discord channel and Facebook page and looking for players of all experience levels, so you can check them out. The comment for the week, what lesser-known festival takes place in Lord's March Plaza?
I was thinking about this, and I'm not sure. I can't remember any festivals that take place there.
I think every year, or maybe more than yearly, so you know how we have paintball, and you can play paintball. They do the same thing, but with mines from Underdark or for Undermine.
Oh, okay.
I don't have a title for it, but I bet you that's what they do for fun over there.
I got nothing.
Yeah, that's a really weird question. Let's see, fansite news. The Damsels of DDO went into the mines for episode 73. I think that's the one that they had Lena Bell on. Let's see, the players news also discussed Favored Souls, Gen Con, and more. We got a shout out for looking at the store was our last show. Even Note pondered the return of Crystal Cove. Bard Life featured guest host Victor Prinzim. Bruce went to the Forgotten Caverns. The Elite Raiders of Kyber find illusions and hopping reapers. They've been posting some videos of them doing some pretty higher level stuff. And a very bad guild is now level 78. It's a great guild name.
Awesome.
Yeah. Even for blogs, Even Note talked to them about going a little haywire. Von 4. And DDO Outrage. I don't. This is fun. I'm trying to describe this. I'm not entirely sure if this is a persona that this author is intentionally using, or if it's actually their how they feel about the game. But it's from the standpoint of very very vocal about what they don't like, which is fine. And this one talks about Reaper and how they think Reaper is ruining the game, or they don't like Reaper. So it's a good counterpoint, if nothing else, to basically what DDOCast has been. A lot of people on DDOCast have been saying about Reaper mode and how they like Reaper mode. So this is a good snapshot of a different perspective than ours. He's also got there's also a bunch of content reviews in there as well. So again, I'm not sure if the quote outrage part is a persona or is like legitimately what they feel. But it was well written and well reasoned, I thought, even though it's not a perspective that I totally share. Let's see, DDOCast news. DDOCast Splat is still going on Tuesdays. We are still good for a wipe a week. I think we've party wiped every week for like 3 months in a row. It's great. Also, the Scavenger Hunt Extravaganza 2 is still going. You have until Labor Day, which is the first Monday in September, to get those submissions in to me. So we'll link to that, and you can find out more information about that. Again, there's some points, some autos boxes, some expansion codes, stuff like that. And Gen Con is this weekend. So if you are at Gen Con now, why are you listening to the show? You should be doing Gen Con things. If you went to Gen Con and you're listening to this in the car on the way to work, please don't drive off the road. Stay safe. But we hope you enjoyed Gen Con and had a lot of fun. It's the 50th Gen Con, which is pretty impressive. There's not a lot. There's not a lot of cons like conventions that are 50 years old, are there? I would think not.
Not in this industry, for sure.
Well, sure. I mean, video games are. I don't even think video games are 50 years old in general. But just like what board games have been around for a long time. But it'd be interesting to catch a History Channel thing on the history of conventions. You know. See how much of them there are, and is that a really big thing, right? I don't know. It's interesting, though. In any case, with that, we can get into our lightning post. I had a lot of people chime in again, which is fantastic. Love it when people chime in. Please feel free to chime in on what you think about Update 36. I love reading other people's thoughts on this. So with that, let's see, Amber Cyan wrote in, so we think the comparison about 50 Reaper action points versus 5 is only valid if you're talking about a character at or near cap. There are some fairly significant level gates for even being able to assign your Reaper enhancement points during low levels. Yes, that's true. However, I actually went and counted, and you can spend well over. I didn't write it down, but I did count. You can spend well over 30 Reaper points at level 4.
36 to be exact. I just hit
36.
that point.
Yeah. So, and if you figure that 2 of those trees, it's like 4 hit points per point, right?
That's
That's
significant.
correct. 2 of them are 4, one's 8.
Yeah. So that's a lot of hit points at level 4. And take it from me as someone again who was writing coattails of people who are have way more points than I do. I mean, at level 10, they had like 400 to 500 more hit points than I did. Actually, I think it was more 400 more hit points than I did. And it showed, and I died a lot more than they did, and they were very gracious about it. But or maybe they're just happy to have a trapper with them. I don't know. They're good folks. They actually are really good folks. So, but yeah, I mean, there's a huge difference in that. So, now having said that, the point of yes, there's a difference in the level gating, but there's still a huge disparity. You can spend a lot of action points to get a lot of, if nothing else, the hit points are a big deal at that level. So,
Yeah, I think I would be okay with them making some changes to the tune of them either gating how many points you can spend per level, so you can't immediately spend 36 points at level 4, or limiting how many trees you can invest in, or something to that effect. Because it does seem, especially early on, that it's excessively overpowering.
I could see an argument for that, but there's also this question of how much gating do you want to do? Because these are benefits that people have earned. You want them to use them. I don't know. I could probably go round and round with myself on that one.
Sure, I can see the other side of it too. Sure.
Fuzzy Duck 81 submitted some assorted ramblings. He loves Bladeforge. Definitely recommend the race. Though his is a pure light side Shintao monk. He likes the quote Wolverine claws, although unfortunately it doesn't actually do anything for you. It should. It really should. But and he actually ditched the Reconstruct S-Lay because he used it so rarely, which on a monk I find amazing. I would love to know what he is doing to not need to use Reconstruct that much.
Yeah.
He agrees with the monster manual thing. They're longer term, but the various bonuses you get are a lot of value. Nice thing he finds to buy are collectible crates. It's a random selection, but at only 45 points a pop when they're full price and about 35 on sale. He's frequently used them to build up on some crafting components. I don't like the random part of it. That's kind of where I am. If I need the bits, I'd rather just go farm them. But I don't do a lot of crafting, so. See, a small exception for the never to buy weapons, in his opinion, are the special material quarterstaffs to Kenneth craft on, either for DR breaking. They've typically got 2 types, or pick up an adamantine one to make a high hardness, high durability general beater. The problem is that they're bound to character on acquire. So, it's an interesting thought. See, he likes the guiding hands, but yeah, he's picked them up from freebies or boxes. Let's see, Supreme upgrade tomes are interesting, as when you activate it, it will split out into 1 upgrade tome for each stat. Still bind to account. So you can't split among multiple characters. You might only want 1 or 2 upgrades. In the end, he always ends up picking up a few heavy fortification sapphires when they are on sale. Yeah, that's a good plan. I should probably do that myself. I always end up spending more than I probably should to get them. If you're TRing a lot, he recommends the Cobalt Admiral's armor with moderate fortification shard for a bit of kit for low levels. So the interesting thing with loot gems is you can apply them on other people as well as yourself. I didn't know you could do that. I haven't tried it, and I'm loath to do so, but I will tell you that, and I don't think this is working intended, but I've figured this out the last couple times on DDOCast Splat, is the res cakes. Currently, if you select someone else and use the res cake, you and them get a res. I think it's only supposed to be
certain kind of cakes. I think it's like the greater ones or something that do
No,
that. It's not all cakes.
It's like the base version.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't.
Since we're talking about the loot gems, though, the treasure hunter elixirs work the same way, that you can target somebody else. You got to put it in your hotbar, and then target them and click on it. I think that's the way it works.
Yeah, I didn't know you could do that though. That's kind of interesting. Kind of neat.
Yeah.
Let's see. On the DDO marketplace, regardless of what type of player you are, when the Black Friday deal rolls around, get the starter pack. It's generally reduced to less than £2 or $3, he thinks. So it's a phenomenal value. Yeah, it is a pretty good value.
I'd like to give this one a special plug, if I may.
Sure, please do.
Because I just got this after playing DD over 8 years. I just got this, and wow, has it changed my life! Especially in Reaper mode, that stupid little hireling that you can pull out and get DVs from every 5 minutes, and it's a gold seal hireling, so you can pull it out anywhere in the dungeon. It gives you like 250 spell points like every 5 minutes, and that has just been giant in Reaper mode.
Sure,
all the spell points burning through. So if you're a caster, for that reason alone, I mean that little perma hireling makes it worth it.
And when it goes on sale, I mean it's so cheap, so cheap.
Yeah, it's like a couple bucks.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it when it's on sale. I'm not saying go out and buy it right now, but and it's been. I can say with confidence it'll probably be on sale again, either around Black Friday or Christmas or something like that, because it's been on sale every year for like 3 or 4 years now. So, and then Harper Agent, he says, if you like playing around with builds, especially using multi-class for more unusual combos, it's great and opens up a lot of options. There you go. Freya said, first, buy Shared Bank. Second, content. And third, Epic Destinies, and then inventory. Yeah, that's a good way to go about it. She was kind of upset that the store sells bags you can get for free. Yeah, I agree. I know some people like the bags. Ever since they gave the crafting sword, I stopped everything in there. I was actually moving things. I had a bag, like a couple large ingredient bags in my shared bank, and then I'd move them to a character that had a huge ingredients bag. Now I just dump everything into that crafting bank. Anonymous says, know the angles is the greatest thing ever. It's pretty much the third artificer tree if you play it. Talk about the Harper Agent tree. Also, it's cheap melee, range, power, and extra damage. Yeah, it's there as well. Let's see. Idle Bigot says he's premium. He never had an issue buying new packs. He TRs so much, especially with Research TRing, that he has plenty of points for buying new packs, races, and classes as they come out. He earned everything he has via favorite farming and spent about $100 on points. So there you go. So there's a great... I think we're saying, I'm not really sure. You might end up buying stuff at a high point, so that might not be the best thing. But apparently, it's this guy has no problem with that, which is fantastic. Little counterpoint there. See, Rude67, it says one of the best artificer builds was a gnome that went up the racial and maxed out Harper with almost no points in the class trees. It's also good for a druid, pale master, or pale master summoner. They do have some stuff in there for charms and summons. Also, about anyone who can use the hit point or spell point boost depending on the class or build. Have you ever used Harper on your druid there, Voodu?
No, but I'm working through half-orc life. Not traditionally. I'm working through half-orc lives right now, and there's nothing I want in the half-orc tree, so I'm finding I'm spending a lot more points in the Harper tree where I traditionally spend none. So that's been a lot of fun to play with that tree a little bit recently.
Yeah, I don't know. Ash, do you use Harper very much?
It's very build dependent, but yes, there's a number of builds where especially going through the know the angles. Know the angles is a great thing. If you don't have access to the Divine Might and with the charisma boost thing, anything where you don't have a paladin or a favorite soul or cleric levels, then if it's a melee or a ranged, I'm almost always going in there to at least get know the angles. But there's a lot of interesting stuff in there. I don't know that I've ever really used it to the higher tiers, but it's a really good tree.
I will highlight something that he said there about summoners, because you've got Harper Leadership, which gives +4 to all your hirelings, summons, and charms. And charming is such an awesome tactic to use in Reaper mode. So if you've got Druid Past Lives, if you got Augment Summoning, and you pick up the Harper Leadership, you can get +14 to all the stats of every mob you charm. And that makes a big difference. I did a charming build like that several lives ago as part of my Dragonborn project series, and just loved it.
Well, and it works really well for Warlocks too, because Warlocks Enlightened Spirit Tree has some stuff in there that you can like really jack up their melee power and stuff like that. I've actually considered for a while trying to figure out what like the optimal charm build would be, specifically for like legendary or for Hound of Zoriat. If you want to do like legendary or Reaper Hound of Zoriat to get the most bang for your buck, right? It does kind of make it. Do they get penalized? Does their damage output get penalized like yours does in Reaper mode? It'd be interesting to know. All right. Question for the week. This came from Blaze a lot on Telenis. Can a bow beat crossbow due to DPS? If not, then why? And I chose this question partly because I've been doing an Artificer build and been playing with this. And I wanted to talk about not so much about crossbow versus bow, but repeater. I want to look at repeaters versus like a great crossbow or a bow. Those repeaters do 3 shots in a row, right? And each one of those shots gets damage reduction compared to like a great crossbow, which has more damage per shot but a slower fire rate. And when you start talking about like Reaper and damage reduction, the DPS, you may actually want a slower but bigger shot to work for that, because you end up punching through the damage reduction and they're both damage, the DR and the damage reduction from Reaper. So, but yes, I would say at cap right now, my Ranger who uses bow is, I think, doing more damage than my Artificer who uses a crossbow.
My feeling is that crossbows generally have a higher rate of fire, especially if you're getting things like endless fusillade and things like that. It's challenging because of many shot. When a bow is on many shot, there's no doubt that that's the best DPS in the game for ranged. But the question is going to be, if you're looking at it across the entire 120 seconds or whatever, when many shots on timer, then I think that the crossbow tends to win out in those periods.
The other thing you got to remember about Endless Fusillade, though, compared to Many Shot, is Endless Fusillade has a limited number of uses. Their action boosts.
That's true.
Many Shot, you can use as many times as you need to. So there's a thing there to think about too.
This isn't really my.
Go ahead.
This isn't really my forte, but I'll just add that if you're dealing with procs, you have to factor that into the equation too, because a repeater is going to have a lot more chance to proc than something that's firing at a lower rate of fire.
Which is why I think especially when you bring a rogue into the equation, a rogue is going to get a lot more bang for the buck out of a repeater, because each one of those shots is eligible for sneak attack damage, which is where they really get a lot of their DPS from. Again,
True.
If your damage is being reduced, you have to take that into consideration. But
if it's a percentage reduction, it doesn't matter. But you're right. If it's a static DR sort of thing where it's lopping off 50 or whatever, off of every hit, then 3 hits lopping 50 off is worse than 1 big hit where you lopped 50 off initially.
Yeah. But really, the answer to the question is yes, a bow can beat a crossbow, and a crossbow can beat a bow. It kind of depends on how you're applying everything together. Some are going to be better than others. If you're on a rogue, or if you're getting a lot of procs, then yeah, a repeater is going to be better. If you're able to do a lot of bigger shots and really utilize money shot, I think you can get more bang for your buck out of a bow. That's kind of my quick summation.
The other thing I would say is that right now I feel like there are a lot better named crossbows, especially at endgame. If you're looking at Divine Artillery, Fatal Flaw, the 2 new bolt slingers and the new content, bows are very lacking. I'm really hoping that in Ravenloft we see at least 1 or 2 really cool named bows, because that's something that's sorely lacking. I think you have to go back to...
I'm still using a Thunderforge bow. My 2 options are a Thunderforge bow and a Greensteel bow that I haven't finished crafting because I'm out of accommodations about on my Ranger. Dope. There was a question in the chat room: does sneak attack still apply on 0 damage shots? Yes. As long as it's a sneak attack, yes, it does. Each of the numbers that pops up if you got your damage turn on, the floating numbers, when anything pops up, all of those are independent. So they all get treated independently. The first one is what actual damage reduction will do. The Reaper damage scaling will affect all of those numbers, which is why if you've got a high Reaper damage scaling that's really pushing your numbers down, a lot of small numbers aren't going to do anything. So if you're just doing 1d6 with 4 different numbers, and that Reaper scaling can push those all down to 1s, whereas if you've got bigger numbers, they won't go down as high or as low. So there you go. Hopefully that was helpful. It's one of those things, weapon comparisons. If you keep it simple, it's pretty easy to figure out. But once you start comparing 2 different weapons, particularly things with different rates of fire, it becomes incredibly complicated. Yeah. In any case, we'll close out the show here. Ash, is there anything you want to plug before we head out?
No, not at all. I'm good.
All right. Voodu, I know you're going to want to plug your channel.
I'll plug my channel. Hell yeah. So I've got my YouTube channel, official DDO fan site, with getting close to 600 videos, quest guides, raid how-tos, crafting tutorials. I'm working on my 10th series right now. It's my first ever party focus series. It's called Reaper Life, where we're doing a 1 to 20 life, doing all mid to high skull. We've got 5 R9 videos in there where we're doing these all legit, a party of 6, all my guildies, and it's 6 people that represent a really good spectrum of the player base. We all the way up to like Syax, who's like triple everything completionist, down to Little Mama, who is starting with virtually nothing in terms of past lives and Reaper points, and we have some average players in between. 3 of the players are just coming back from like 2 and 3 year break, so it's representing like that returning player as well. It's been an awesome series, a fun series. So if you're a little bit newer to Reaper mode, we're trying to encourage people to not only get involved in Reaper, but once you've been doing Reapers for a few lives and you've built up some Reaper points, to give these higher skull quests a try. They are totally doable, and that's one of the things that we want to show in this series.
We've got some guildies that are doing some 10 skull runs of some of the newer content and are loving it.
That's awesome.
I think it's still can take them quite a bit to do some. I think they said that it took like an hour and 45 minutes to do one of the new requests. But they are having fun, which is the important part. So we'll say thanks for listening to the show, especially the folks in the chat room. And thanks to my guest here as well for being with us today. Thanks to all the contributors for DDOCast. Thanks to Standing Stone Games and Wizards of the Coast for making DDO happen, and to Cybears for hosting our podcast. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website, DDOCast.com. You can also support us on Patreon, and you can subscribe on Twitch, I think. I'm still figuring that out, but I did do some stuff on Twitch so that people can support the show that way. You can hit us up at DDOCast.com for show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, swag, and other fun stuff. If you'd like to be part of the show, or you just want to have have a comment, question you'd like to hear us answer, or topic you'd like to hear us debate for one of our debate shows, or a question or something like that. Or if you just want to say hi, leave us a comment. You can email us at DDOCast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media for the latest cast updates. Our closing tip for the week comes from Dan on Kyber. Don't forget the Stone of Change rituals, particularly the Adamantine ritual, and stuff that breaks really easily. That is fantastic.
I love them.
Yeah, that's great.
So until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your test level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs.